Welcome to the interview with PREGAME. I'm Ciara Pressler, founder of PREGAME and addict to people who are doing things that are creative, innovative, or just changing the game in some way. And so every Friday I bring you one of my very favorite game changers so we can find out how they did it, how they do it, and what is happening now and next. Because so many of us are thinking about our careers on a big level, whether we've already started a transition, have been forced into a transition, or are just thinking about what we do right now and whether we want to make a change, it's always a good time to evaluate your career. And so I invited Steve Potestio, co-founder of Mathys+Potestio, a recruitment firm based in Portland, Oregon, but also with locations around the West, to come have a conversation with us and tell us the real truth behind what's going on in the job market right now, what you want to be cautious of, and causes for optimism too. So welcome, Steve.
Thanks, Ciara. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for your time. I'm sure you're swamped right now, or are you? What's going on?
Well, we're swamped with, unfortunately, people looking for work. You know, we're doing everything we can to just be a mechanism of support for them, and trying to offer, you know, tips and guidance and, you know, a shoulder to cry on, so to speak. You know, which, you know, my firm's not in the business of career counseling, but we are certainly trying to do our best to be supportive. And having been through, you know, kind of one of these bad cycles before, you know, I think makes it a little easier for me, you know, to kind of offer hope. So that's a lot of what we're trying to do, is keep people's spirits up as much as we can.
That's great. I'm just definitely going over and above in your job, and I identify with that. There's a whole emotional support element to being in a service business right now.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and you know, I know we'll get into it, but it's not like everything is completely shut down. I mean, it may seem like that if you go out and about some places, but you know, a lot of it is just trying to, you know, prepare and kind of think big picture. So it can be a time to you know, get your house in order, so to speak. I think I've vacuumed more in the last couple of months than I have in the previous, I don't know how many years. That's, you know, but so there's certainly a lot of things that people can be doing right now to kind of stay active if, you know, their job search per se isn't maybe going as well as they would have hoped. There's a lot of things they can be doing to prepare for it.
I definitely want to talk about that. I want to touch on, you know, taking a long view. You said you've been through this before. I assume that's the 2008-2009 recession period.
Yeah, exactly.
How is this looking the same or different from that?
I think that, well, the difference largely is the numbers, maybe. You know, I mean, you know, we're being focused in creative services marketing. I mean, that's often, you know, kind of the stereotypical place where companies cut first. You know, and I think ad agencies and design firms and some of those types of businesses have been hit particularly hard, and marketing departments and companies. So I think there's just a numbers thing, and then certainly just the dynamic of everything is just weird. You know, people that are into sports don't have sports, and, you know, things that you typically can rely on being there aren't necessarily there, which, you know, the good side is that maybe focuses people more on, you know, the things that matter, you know, family and all of that. But, you know, so that's certainly good. But I think it's just sheer kind of just numbers of people that have been adversely affected by this.
It's no secret that in the Portland area, you know, a lot of our economy and our jobs and the overflow to contractors is driven by Nike and by Intel. do you do business with them, or, you know, are you seeing a ripple effect from some of the larger corporations?
So I'm not really allowed to name.
That's fine. That's fine. Well, I guess maybe
I'll
the
say
certain
maybe.
phrase. Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, a lot of the, you know, I do think there's a fairly large percentage of companies that are just in kind of hunker down mode, and they're doing fine. And, you know, they may not be hiring across the board, but they aren't necessarily going in the other direction either. And they're just kind of taking a wait and see approach. You know, Nike has been in the news for being pretty well positioned and having done a really good job to, you know, up their digital game. I mean, it was kind of obviously up anyway, but I mean, you know, if they have done really well, I think, to position themselves to get through this situation. I think there are other firms that have done the same, and certainly the more a company is in, you know, the digital online space, I think they're just inherently better positioned than other firms that are not, or are still maybe trying to figure that out. You know, firms that already had kind of a flexible workforce type of dynamic are better positioned. I mean, my company's always allowed a pretty fair amount of flexibility in terms of, you know, you've got a laptop and internet connectivity, you can work from anywhere. So firms that have kind of had that mentality, you know, before, you know, all of this hit, I think are just better positioned because they're just more used to working in this type of, you know, dynamic as well.
Yeah. Do you think that, you know, this sudden force into remote work has made companies that were dragging their feet on that, you know, hustle toward the digital space, whether that's internally or externally needing to up their like e-commerce game?
I think the firms that maybe weren't, you know, progressive in terms of allowing people, you know, to work from home and things like that, are probably realizing that, hey, you know, work still gets done when people are working from home, and maybe this isn't that bad. And maybe I've had to go out of my way to connect with employees that maybe I didn't think I needed to previously. I mean, I was on a call earlier with a business owner who indicated he's probably had more one-on-ones with his staff in the last couple of months than, you know, previously, because he just didn't feel like he had a need to do that before, which is, I guess, kind of unfortunate in that regard. But so, you know, there's always like this inherent fear from, I think, managers and business owners and executives that, you know, what are people doing and are they working? And, you know, kind of that fear of giving up control or something because they can walk past and see someone sitting at their desk, you know, working away. So they've had to let go of that. And, you know, that's good because no one likes to be micromanaged anyway. But at the same time, there are people that don't do well in a work from home dynamic either. So I think it's forcing companies to be flexible, and that is a good thing.
Do you think some people don't do well working remotely because they just haven't had to figure it out yet? Or do you think it's a personality type and they'll always have a hard time with it?
I think it's a personality type. I don't do well working from home. You know, I'm always going upstairs and asking my wife and son, what are you guys doing? You know, I'm just like, what's going on? You know, and
Oh, wait, so you're the husband everyone's complaining about.
yeah, and you know, you go and I mean, I for whatever reason, I stare out the window and look at my yard a lot. So I don't know. I think people who are maybe, you know, more apt to thrive on the energy that they get from other people, or, you know, I do well you know, like I previously would work remote from time to time, but it would always be in a super noisy coffee shop. And no headphones. I liked all that noise around me, and actually could focus really well on it. So I like to be out and about, and I think there are just some people that are maybe a little bit more wired in that way.
So we're seeing companies announce that they're not going back to the office, whether it's an open-ended announcement like Twitter, or through the end of the year like Google. I'm curious if that's going to open up job opportunities. If you didn't live in a place that had a Twitter office before, now can you get into the candidate line at Twitter even though they're in New York or San Francisco?
Yeah, and we have seen that with a couple of clients who have said, we obviously don't care where the talent's located because everyone's working remote right now. I don't know, it's hard to say if that's just a thing because of the current situation or if that will translate over. There is a lot to be said for knowing and working, with coworkers in an office, and that camaraderie and teamwork and, that dynamic that, can be very positive. So I don't know. I do think companies will be more open to that situation, whether it's a big trend or whether it's something that they, allow at certain levels of the organization. We'll just kind of have to wait and see. I mean, in those situations, one of the first things I thought of was, unfortunately, like the support businesses and the businesses that are around, say, the Twitter headquarters, where, your lunch spots and your local, convenience stores, and, the trickle down effect that it's going to have on all of those businesses, isn't going to be good. But yeah, I think there will be a percentage where companies will go, yeah, we don't care necessarily where you're located, which could fuel people leaving certain cities. People may not need to live in these larger metropolitan hubs that maybe they thought they had to in the past.
Well, I think that's really exciting because, we're both based in Portland, and Portland's considered a second-tier city or maybe third-tier, depending on who you're asking. But, there's a win-win there where someone could live in Portland, which has an extremely high lifestyle. It's a wonderful place to live. But, we don't have the, say, tech scene that San Francisco has. So if you can live in Portland but work for a company in San Francisco, that's really great. And maybe San Francisco sees that as an advantage because they can pay a different salary because of cost of living being so much lower in a place like Portland.
Yeah, and that trend was already here. So I do just kind of expect it to continue and accelerate. And you also have to take into account there's going to be a percentage of employees that don't want to go back to the office or are uncomfortable going back to the office. And, just realizing that and be ready for that, and that should be okay.
Well, so the big question of the day is who is hiring right now? So it may be specific companies, but also could be specific types of roles or sectors. And I know you specialize in particular industries.
So I'm going to steal Jordan Livingston, who runs our Portland and Boise and Austin offices. Had to answer this question the other day, so I'm just gonna repeat what he said because it's true. It's look around at kind of what you are doing or what people are doing day in and day out, the types of activities that they are participating in. It's online. It's fitness. It's bicycling. The golf industry is up.
Yeah. Fitness, really? Is it because people are learning to stream, or what areas of fitness?
Well, like Peloton is doing
Yeah.
extremely well right now. And I don't think they were doing all that well previously. If anyone from that firm is watching, they could correct me if they want. But, you know, so, you know, I mean, I downloaded the Peloton app because I can't go to the gym. And, you know, certainly bicycling. But companies also that are, again, more digitally focused, you know, going back to the, you know, marketing and advertising space, firms that are, you know, e-commerce agencies are doing better than a firm that is maybe more rooted in traditional advertising. And so, you know, and I came upon a company the other day that, you know, provides like IT services for homeschooling. I mean, gee, what a great time to be, you know, running a business that does that. You know, so
Yeah, I was talking to one of my mentors yesterday, and she has a friend who is a co-founder in a, you know, digital conferences events software. I mean, they were struggling before this. Now they can't do enough demos.
yeah,
And I've been doing a lot more consulting work on, you know, pregame. The main thing we provide is business coaching, but you know, doing some more agency style work, helping people with their brands and their communications, because they have a little more space to think about it. Even these very small businesses that just need somebody for a few months to come in and fix whatever hasn't been working, or just bring them up to speed.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it would be a good time for businesses to take stock of their, you know, online presence and their brand and make sure that they are, you know, positioned now and in the future. And so, yeah, you know, anything that is an exercise or a type of activity that people can be actively doing online, which is, you know, I mean, I don't know, the whole screen time thing is something that people have to, you know, look at too. I mean, that's another thing about working from home. It's like, you know, you gotta train yourself into, you know, turning off the computer and putting the screens away, and you know, going outside or doing something to get your face away from that dynamic too.
Yeah, I certainly went all Zoom at the beginning of stay home, and then I'm trying to equalize now with you know, half Zoom, half phone calls. Like if we don't need the screen, let's take the screen out of the equation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, it's, you know, I've always been, you know, I like to, in our company, it's like we like to do business face to face and with a handshake, and it's like, well, okay, we'll get by, you know, for now. But yeah, I think that's why people are going, you know, crazy working from home or just in lockdown mode is, humans are a social species. So, you know, we need to be connecting as much as we can.
Yeah. Well, so let's keep pressing on that point about hiring. So if somebody maybe doesn't consider themselves like a digital marketer, but you know, is on the creative side, do you think it's a time for people to adjust their resumes to be more conducive toward digital marketing? Like if maybe they're more of a designer, or like a classic creative, or do you think there will be opportunities for them coming up? Like what are the different roles in marketing?
So you can't, I mean, you can't position yourself inaccurately or inappropriately. You know, if you don't have the digital skill or background or, you know, experience, you can't just all of a sudden make it up. But you do need to be, I think, aware of, you know, that shortcoming, if you will, in your background or experience, and do what you can to, you know, get up to speed. You there's certainly people or things that people can do to position themselves better. So if they have digital experience or they've done things, that are maybe properly represented on their resume or their LinkedIn, it's time to kind of maybe take stock of that and maybe pull that skill and experience a little bit more front and center. I'm kind of an old school person anyway. I mean, I actually physically read the sports page in the newspaper this morning.
What was in there? Was it one page long?
The sports page is pretty depressing these days.
Korean baseball.
I think it was 4 pages.
Yeah.
But so I'm never one to go, oh my God, I was never that person who, when Kindles and all that stuff was coming out, that was like, oh my God, no one's going to read books again. People still read books. In fact, there's almost like people probably read more books physically than they do on Kindle. I have no idea, but that those old worlds may change and some do go away. But there's still, if you're a graphic designer or marketer, or you're rooted more in traditional or physical, tangible type goods, it's not like those things are going away. And everything's going, online. But you might need to, diversify, or just, part of it is just staying relevant. I think especially for a marketer, marketers need to stay relevant, and people just need to do what they can to stay relevant. It's people who are looking for jobs. I use kind of the analogy of someone walking down, a grocery store aisle, and you're a product on the shelf. You have to do what you can to, appeal to that person who's just kind of walking down the aisle and looking at things. Whatever that may be, resume or LinkedIn or, online presence, or, depending on who you are and what you do, but you do need to think in those terms, I think. And for a marketer who's maybe looking for work, that person needs to put themselves in the position of, okay, well, now I am the product, and how do I need to market myself? And just, not be afraid to, accept the, the warts, if you will, and work on trying to go, okay, well, how am I going to, position myself to be as appealing as possible?
So if someone were to use this time to invest in becoming more relevant, how would they even go about that?
Well, I think from again, just on the marketing is understanding the tools that are being used in business. If you are in the white collar world, understanding, again, something like Zoom, familiarizing yourself with that. If it's social media, you don't necessarily have to dive into, oh my God, I'm not relevant if I don't have an Instagram or a Twitter or things like that. No, that's not what I'm saying. But you need to be aware of what they are and what they do and how they could be effective. And not be the person that goes, well, things just kind of passed me by. That could be used as a crutch, and it's like, don't let things pass you by. It doesn't mean you need to embrace them. I'm not like an early adopter of every new cool thing that comes along. But if I need to know what they are and what they do, then that's on me to do that.
So here's a great question from our Zoom studio audience. Is there a way for creatives to pivot to be more essential, or is creativity the superpower that we need to lean into more right now?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, I think a little bit of both. you know, creativity in all its forms is always an extremely valuable thing to, you know, possess. And so whatever, you know, whatever avenue you, you know, use to show that creativity, by all means, do not stop pursuing that avenue. You know, but say you're a sculptor. Okay, so that's not exactly. I mean, hasn't sculpting been for a long time? But it's like, okay, so I'm a sculptor. Great. Utilize the tools that are available to you to make your skills and ability more known. You know, to promote your creativity. Don't just go in your studio and sculpt and just sit there and look at your great works of art and do nothing with them. You know, that's maybe, I don't know if that's a good example, but it's an example of someone who has a creative pursuit, and maybe that's their profession, that wouldn't, you know, isn't like an online digital thing, but they can utilize those tools to make, you know, to promote their work and themselves and their own, you know, personal and professional brand.
Well, I think there's a good example there of going from analog to digital without losing, you know, your talent or creativity or what you love. They will say somebody is a writer and they've been in the writing game for 20 years. And, you know, before it was about, you know, copy editing for a medical journal or something like that. It can't hurt to learn more about SEO writing so that your writing translates to websites. And that's something that you can just keep improving, so that you have more tools in your toolkit, but you're still a writer.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm curious if you are seeing different disruptions in the markets for hiring based on your different locations, because your firm based in Portland, offices in Boise, Austin, Los Angeles. Am I missing anything?
Los Angeles and San Francisco.
Okay.
What?
So do you see different dynamics for who's hiring, or what companies are sort of on pause in those different markets?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, Los Angeles, for example, obviously being an entertainment hub, you know, that industry is doing fine. I mean, they can't, you know, they can't go on set and, you know, on site and film yet. But you know, everyone's, you know, people are streaming and, you know, getting entertainment that way. And so any company that is providing those types of services, you know, is doing fine. It's, you know, I think we've, you know, we're pretty well positioned again because of that diversity in our offices and our locations. And you know, part of the reason we expanded in the first place is I didn't, you know, having gone through the recession, I didn't want to be tied just to Portland's economy. You know, being a second, or as you said, someone would think a third tiered city. You know, we tend to get hit harder sometimes by these situations and come out of them slower. You know, a tech hub like Austin, not so much. San Francisco is just, you know, an economic machine historically. And with all the tech in San Francisco, not so much. And same thing with Los Angeles. And so it, you know, all the markets do vary a bit, but, you know, every market's been hit hard by the pandemic. I mean, there's just kind of no getting around that. And services are obviously have been hit hard. And so there's just no getting around that. And that's pretty consistent in all of the markets that we're in.
Are there any types of specific jobs, roles that you have a hard time finding? Or, you know, if somebody were just coming out of school right now or thinking about going back to school, a good place to invest?
For if you're a student or you're coming
Yeah,
out
or
of that.
maybe thinking about career change, friends in hospitality who are thinking, maybe hotels and restaurants are not going to bounce back for a long time. Tourism is going to take a hit for a while. So maybe it's time to go, get a degree or go to a trade school, which I'm a big fan of, or even online training. What are the roles that you think are going to just have be a good investment for a career change?
Well, I'd say nursing, but I think they're having their own
Yeah.
they obviously have some challenges, unfortunately. But that's a good question. I mean, I think if you're a designer, user experience and UI, just improving your skills to, maybe develop kind of that full suite of experience and offerings. I don't know. I read something the other day of the industries that are never coming back, and I don't know what I don't know what they said, but that's a hard question because we don't really know what things are going to look like in 6 to 9 months. So we don't really know, like the hospitality industry. Maybe it does go more, virtual or something, but there's certain aspects of it that obviously can't. And maybe the hospitality industry rebounds, really well. People get to where they are comfortable traveling and restrictions have been lifted. And so there's like a rush to resume those normal, travel type activities. I don't know. That's kind of a tough one for me. Sorry.
No, it's fine. The reason I was first drawn to you and we became business friends is because we were on a panel together talking about the creative career journey. And I was just really impressed with how chill you are about running your business. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, founders can be really high strung and kind of get off on the drama. And you really take the opposite tack. And that was one of the first questions I asked you when we had coffee was, like, how are you doing this? And you indicated that it was really a choice to run your business with the attitude of high drama or or chill. And so I want to get into a talk about you as an entrepreneur and starting this company.
As long as you're calm and chill and not boring.
Your staff is probably like, what are you talking about?
You seem really comatose. Are you there?
No.
I don't know. It's probably I don't know. For me, it's probably just because I've been through a lot professionally, and I've worked a lot of really shitty jobs and at crappy companies. And I don't know. From a cultural thing, I feel like to be an entrepreneur, you have to have a fairly healthy ego, and I think there's also this dynamic in our culture where people are, you're kind of constantly fighting yourself or fighting your way up the ladder, so to speak. And I think there can be this inclination to where you're an entrepreneur and you feel like you're at the top of the ladder, or getting near the top of the ladder, and you're like, well, I've kind of earned the right to be an asshole or to not care as much about the people down on the lower rungs. And I don't know. For me, I think I've always tried to, think of myself also as an employee in the company. I mean, I've got to show up at that place of work when we could go to work, every day, as long as, with anyone else in the company. So I've got to enjoy working there as well. And I think sometimes people just get to a point where they're like, well, I'm the executive in the corner office, so I can act, it gives me a license to maybe act differently or not care as much. Or again, for the entrepreneur, again, some of them, it's kind of like, hey, it's all about me, and this was my idea, and I started this company. And, that just creates kind of an attitude. And I've seen it many times in many business owners. And I've had people say things to me and I'm like, whoa, really, you think that way? And I've just always tried to remember that, I'm employee. I'm just along with everybody else, and try to create a company that everybody likes to work at. Not, it's not just a great place for me to work.
So how long have you had your firm?
10 years.
And you have a business partner?
Yes.
How do you
Jackie
keep that?
Mathys.
Yes. How do you keep that relationship working? Because that is a major relationship, business partners.
Well, I think one of the benefits that we have is our skills and our strengths are complementary. So we don't cross over too much. She lets me do what I'm good at. I let her do what she's good at. And, we just don't get in each other's way that often. And I have had, business relationships where that was the case. And, that just creates conflict. But it's not easy. I mean, anyone that is in any type of, relationship and one-to-one relationship knows that, conflict and that type of thing is just goes along with the situation and is, kind of unavoidable. So a lot of it is how you manage it, or how you learn to manage it, but also respect and, accepting what each person kind of brings to the table.
Yeah, on that note, I mean, how do you stay engaged and evolving as a founder?
Well, part of it for me is, continued growth and new challenges. Again, part of the reason why I wanted to, expand into other cities. Mathys+Potestio is the second business of a second creative staffing agency that I have co-founded. And so, once I got to a certain stage at M&P, it's kind of like, okay, well, I've done this twice. I obviously can do this. What's, kind of like what's next for me in terms of a business challenge? And it was expansion, but it was also, can I grow this to a point where, we're providing opportunities for people to, grow within the company and become executives? And, are we creating or can we create this much larger, bigger company and infrastructure where, people are able to do more and become more leaders? And, I'm kind of pushing some of that off on them. And it's, it's not about, the two of us, which, then our names are on the door, but, we've created, very early on, we created a brand that could move beyond us. Because it's not, it's not about the M and the P. It's really about, the company and the people that are working in the company that are really going to drive the success. And I think that's one of the things that entrepreneurs have a hard time with. It's all about me. I started this, it's my thing. And it's like, yeah, sure. But if you have that viewpoint, you're only going to grow so far because the company will never grow beyond you. You'll be the one that will inhibit the continued growth and evolution of the company. And yeah, entrepreneurs can't accept, they have a hard time accepting that.
It's a very difficult balance between the ego and the humility, because you do need some of the ego to take such a big risk, because any of us could go, potentially get a job somewhere and not have to worry about so many different things. And there's certainly a reward of the challenge of entrepreneurship. So you need that arrogance to start and to grow and to think, yeah, I can do this. And just even to overcome some of the inner critic or imposter syndrome that we all experience. But then you need the humility in order to listen and take advantage of opportunities and help other people grow on your team.
I try to apply the arrogance and the competitiveness and that to my competitors, you know, and try to apply that energy outward to compete again, you know, in the marketplace or, you know, just against other firms. And maybe, I don't know, I mean, maybe, I mean, this is probably bad because arrogance is maybe too strong of a word, but, you know, building up just kind of the company brand and position and, you know, just kind of feeling like, yeah, I mean, this company kicks ass and we might kick your ass. And, you know, we're really good at what we do and we're not afraid to say it. We're not going to be, you know, we're not going to be jerks about it. But again, applying that, I tend to kind of apply that attitude. And I have that. I mean, I you know, probably have a degree of arrogance, but I try to apply it to my competitors and my enemies.
Yeah, I mean, but that's even a challenge of balance too, right? Because it's good to have that competitive streak, but if you pay too much attention to your competitors, that can just become all-consuming.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I like to know what they're doing largely, so I can look and make sure that we're kind of, you know, we're doing it better or in a way that I like a lot more. You know?
I love that. Yeah, yeah, that's good. Speaking of competitors, we have another question from our audience, which is, you know, now that it is really an employer's market, what can candidates do to stand out or stay on recruiters and employers' radars with so much competition in the job market?
So good question. It is a tough situation because there is a lot of competition out there. And I would say this in any type of economic dynamic is you have to, one, make sure you're positioned well to compete. So again, your personal brand, your online identity, everything is dialed in as it possibly can be. And then you have to kind of try to break out and put yourself in situations where maybe there isn't as much competition, and someone would, well, how do you do that? It's putting yourself in front of companies and opportunities that may or may not exist, and trying to break out of the, well, I saw 10 jobs posted today, so I applied to 10 jobs, and so that's all I can do. You know, it's like, no, there is a lot more you can be doing. And so, you know, rather than sending your resume to a company that maybe has 100 other resumes, you send your resume to a company that doesn't have a job posting. And maybe they don't have a job posting because they haven't gotten around to posting it yet, but they've been hiring, you know, for a week or something. And now you're one of maybe a handful of resumes that company received that week. You know, who knows? But I've been in companies where, you know, I was in a recruiting role and I'd fill jobs faster. You know, I'd hire people faster than my, you know, IT department could get the job posted on the website, you know? And so those situations are out there. I mean, the challenge is you got to work for them. You know, I mean, the people do have to break out of the, which can be the monotony of just applying to jobs. But also realizing that we're in a tough situation. And so maybe you got to do a little bit more and expand yourself a little bit more. And as we touched on earlier, maybe there are, maybe you're in a job that is easy to do remote. And so, yeah, maybe you do look at organizations in another market, that might be open to hiring a more remote, workforce in the future.
Last question then, when is it the right time for people to work with a recruiting firm? And that's maybe better than going direct. And what's the classiest way people can introduce themselves to you?
So, I own a recruiting firm, so it's always a good time to work with a recruiting firm. But it is actually, just because we don't control the clients that we support, and we don't control their hiring needs, and we don't know what they're going to be and when they're going to be. And so having a relationship with a recruiter or a few recruiters, however many you can kind of manage, and however many you like, is good, because they don't know from one day to the next which client is going to reach out to them. And so if you can get ahead of it by establishing a good rapport and good communication with recruiters, and so that they really know you better, you're in a better chance to be in kind of a consultative type approach versus more just constant reactionary type approach. There was a second part to that question, which I forget what it is now.
Yeah, the classiest way to get that intro.
Just just a proper reach out, and here's me, and I could use your help, or I'm in, this is my background, and I'm trying to make connections and network, and would love to be considered for, part of your talent pool for representation, either now or in the future. It's a time when, it's always a good time for good manners. But this is certainly a time for good manners, and to treat people with respect and appreciate their time, and be cognizant of their time. And that approach always goes over well. But recruiters should be wired to help people. And so, a good recruiter should be very happy to hear from any potential candidate.
Awesome. Well, you heard it here. Contact your friendly local recruiter, and be classy, be polite, and put your best foot forward. Use this time to level up your skills where you can, or highlight the areas that might be conducive to the future we are all hurled into right now to build together. So thank you, Steve, for your time. Everyone follow Mathys+Potestio on the socials, and check them out, see what they're up to.
Thanks, Ciara.
Yeah, game on.
I spit it cold like lyrically I'm a problem. That's when the show starts. I get it livid. I did it. So who the illest spitter?